all, with one question of my own as well. The fact is that there has been blood, sweat, and tears in the run up to this moment. There has been the demolition that LK Advani, no less, called the saddest day of his life. There have been the 90 to 93 sort of bombs that then go off in Mumbai. This has been one of the divisive issues of our time. Now, hopefully, put behind us as a country after the verdict has come from the Supreme Court. There are those who will say you cannot erase history as you look at this moment. There cannot be an erasure of history. There has to be a healing of history. What would you say, Hindol?
I agree. In fact, I even agree that actually in India, there was always a consensus on various things. In fact, before the hard left got into action, and at that time, the infamous JNU bunch got into action, there was consensus even among the Hindus and Muslims on how to progress on this, Babri Masjid issue and how to come to a solution which would be acceptable to the Hindus. It is actually until K. Muhammad and others, actually showed the archaeological findings. It is the JNU gang of that time which came and convinced the Muslim leadership at that time to act, go take this to court, make this a conflict, deny the existence of a temple, make this a Hindu-Muslim issue. And of course, that had a response, and obviously the collision happened. I completely agree. These things need to be mutually, sorted through dialogue. This has been a long tradition in India that this can be sorted through dialogue. I also agree that Hindus in this country are not all necessarily only voters of the BJP. We are confusing a very large community with one party. There are Hindus in this country, and therefore I say this issue is much bigger than Congress and BJP. This is a question of Hindu civilizational pride. This stretches far beyond two political parties. And I think the gentleman you pointed out is right, that the Muslims also should participate in this event because it's an epochal event. And it is definitely going to go down as one of the striking moments of India's history. And I do believe that, this outreach that the Prime Minister has done, again, Shashi is right, this is not new. Narendra Modi used to do this kind of outreach even when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. This kind of outreach essentially brings people together. This is a civilizational moment. As long as the hard left doesn't interfere, the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, as Pushparaj was mentioning, can be maintained on the ground. It is only when that vicious ideology enters the room, things get vitiated and become a conflict. This is my personal experience also from Calcutta, because I grew up under communist rule.
Okay, we need to take last comments now. Shashi, I'll come to you, and then I'll come to Pushpraj and Rashid. Go ahead. The BJP has seized the political moment, which is what politics is about. But it is also gone for the jugular with posters that I was mentioning in the beginning, saying ye to Sanatan ke opponents hai. Now, when Pushpraj says this is performative religiosity, the BJP is not the certificate giver of who's a Hindu and who's not, who's a nationalist and who's not. You would say what, Shashi?
I think it is self-inflicted misery, right? It is not the BJP that asked Udayinidhi Stalin to make comments on Sanatan Dharma. It didn't ask, all the entire rank and file of leaders, Congress leaders, to make all kinds of uncalled for comments, comparing this entire way of life to dengue and malaria, right? So it is all self-inflicted misery, and they had a great opportunity, historic opportunity, to have, course corrected, which they just refused. I think it's a folly that they will regret. It's very unfortunate. I mean, this is a movement of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived by, Lord Ram, including his final words, right? And that party to have turned its back on this historical moment, I think it's a folly that they will regret for a long time to come.
Pushpraj, the Congress turning its back on a Gandhian way of actually what you said in the beginning. The Congress gave up the street. Gandhi, there was no better master of mobilization, and he did it using, and it wasn't performative. He really was a believing, pious Hindu. He did it using the language of faith. Isn't the problem today, and I say this in a Mea Culpa moment, I mean, I recognize that the way many of us were educated, brought up, We didn't know the language of faith. And therefore, when we tried to propagate our ideas, we couldn't reach a large number because we didn't have the language that, I'm not comparing myself to Gandhi literally. I'm just saying we didn't have that mass language. Pushpraj.
See, I mean, this is a larger structural issue that you're talking about. I think the large majority of India continues to live these traditions. And every time we pass a temple, we bow immediately. Every time we pass even a masjid or a church, we immediately bow. This kind of give and take, the civilization melting pot, that thing is already there in all of us. We might not have that language or the lexicon at the larger political level, but we have that, we live that tradition. Now let's accept the fact that the Sangh has successfully shifted India's political center rightwards. But it's our job, everyone here, to bring it back to the center. In this, I agree with Indore. We have to bring it back to the center. Let's not play the BJP's game, because they will keep upping the ante. Yesterday it was Babri Masjid, then it was the Sengol issue. And then, if you remember their old slogan, Ayodhya to jhaki hai, Mathura Kashi baki hai. They've started this now. You cannot, secular parties, progressive parties cannot outpunch the BJP. They cannot out-Hindutva the BJP. You can't punch them from the right. So, and the thing is, people see through this hypocrisy. They see through the BJP's politicization of Hinduism. They see the fact that you are also trying to be a pale photocopy. What they're looking for from everyone, not just us, but the media, but even the political parties, is a credible vision that is inspiring and forward-looking. If progressive parties and all of us take a stand on principle, saying that faith is a personal affair, we need to focus on the people's, the national issues, people will respond. What we need is to capture the center. That's what I keep saying.
Okay, the center is very important, and I actually think there's great value that should be attached to centricism. Rashid, Tony Blair, and again, these are not literal examples. Please, nobody take it literally. But Tony Blair built a new Labour based on what was called the third way. And he tried to find this middle ground between, Thatcherite sort of conservative politics and the hard left of the Labour Party at that time. You can see Keir Starmer trying to do the same. I'm bringing up a British example only to say the Congress seems to lurch between a confused Me Too imitation of the BJP, Kamal Nath in Madhya Pradesh, your home state, or a hard left that doesn't resonate with anybody. How does it find its own voice? It doesn't have its own voice right now. Rashid.
No, but I think this is a phase. Of course, the Congress follies that it is not listening to its own cadre. We have not seen in all these months and years that a kind of AICC session focusing on what should Congress be doing about Ram Temple issue or Ayodhya dispute, etc. We can keep go on talking about Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb, etc. But when it comes to electoral politics, you see, it is increasingly becoming very difficult for a minority community member to win from anywhere unless it is a minority concentrated district. So it's not the way it's in Telangana or in Karnataka or in Tamil Nadu. It's becoming very difficult if you look at that entire turf of northern India, Hindi belt or what we call cow belt. It is very difficult for a Muslim candidate from any political party, and then it takes two to tango. You look at the very complex relationship between Muslims and BJP. So it's not, there is no easy solution. But politics and democracy is all about numbers. It's about participation, and therefore there is a lot of problem. We can go on saying how Iqbal had described Lord Rama as a Imamul Hind, and there are 64 editions of Ramayana in Urdu, etc. These are all I would say the good idealistic kind of dining room chat. But when it comes to electoral politics, it's very different, and that is where I think a lot needs to be done. And it is Congress which is struggling to find a response, because there is no middle ground, there is no third way that you are talking about.
I'm going to briefly end with Hindol because there was a reference made to Kashi Mathura, and there was a Places of Worship Act that the Supreme Court's own verdict on Ayodhya actually refers to. And validates, at least in the judgment on Ayodhya. Now, there is a sense that this will not end here. These debates will not end here. This fight, Mandir Masjid argument, historical argument, will not end here. And while this is an epochal moment, Ram embedded in sort of the cultural muscle memory, as it were, of this nation across faiths, what if this spirals out of control? What if this is a back to the 90s with other places of worship? I just want your last thought on that.
Very quickly then, Barkha. Yes, I do believe that there will be conversations about this in two more places. Mathura and Kashi. I do think that that is quite probable. And my last point is indeed that what my colleague from the Samruddha Bharat Foundation said. You can try and find a third way, but this third way cannot come unless you fundamentally accept that the framework that Shashi Vembati was talking about, that framework in which to understand India is through a civilization, and that civilization is Hindu. If you don't accept that, if you do not begin with that, if you cannot understand that the underlying moral principle of this country is dharma, then then there is no, we'll keep having these conversations infinitely. That is the fundamental. India is a civilizational state. That is the fundamental thing that some of my other colleagues perhaps don't agree. India is a civilizational state, quite like China, and you cannot dissect and take away the civilization away from the understanding of the Indian point of view, or the Indian way of looking at the world. Having said that, yes, there would be two more conversations like this in Mathura and Kashi, and of course, I absolutely believe that it should only be done legally, and whatever is the legal solution should be accepted.